So welcome to the online launch of Poetry is Not Dead, our 2023 competition, the Anthology. We've been running the competition for 7 years now, and each year the standard of entries is incredibly high. This year we decided to offer 2 pamphlet prizes instead of only 1, and to give 3 joint first prizes to individual poems from among the rest. We're very grateful to Mandy Pannett, who's here this evening, and she took on the job of selecting the shortlist and the winners. It was a difficult and time-consuming job. Her wide experience as a poet and editor was absolutely invaluable. We went through the poems together and separately many times. Sorry to have to leave out so many excellent pieces of work. Part of what Mandy said, and it's in the anthology, was, what did I find in poems and pamphlets that reached the long and short lists? Something unique in each one, of course, but a common factor in all of them was depth, an impression of being multi-layered, atmospheric, open to different, intriguing interpretations. A quality, Mandy said, I found in the winning pamphlet selections by Joe Michelson and Tim Keeley was a sense of completeness, not in the way of length, because both authors are currently working on the rest of their collections, but in unity of thought and vision, the way each poem in the selection felt right. So this evening, we're so happy that so many of the contributors can be here to read at least one of the poems that so nearly won one of the top 5 prizes in the competition. As Mandy has said, we were sad that so many excellent poems had to be left out, but that is the nature of competitions. So this evening, we're going to hear poems from the prize winners first, and go on to the other poets whose work is highly commended and who all testify to the truth of the anthology's title, Poetry is Not Dead. And we're going to start with Tim Keeley, who is one of the pamphlet entries winners. Tim, would you like to unmute and give us your poems?
Thank you very much, Janice Donnell, and thank you to Mandy for those very kind words. I'm going to take 3 poems, one of which ended up in the anthology and one of which was written since winning, or since finding out that I was going to be placed in this competition. So I'm going to start then with a poem that kind of, I think, encapsulates more or less all of what I was going for across the selection in one title. This is called For the Breaking of Winter. For the hour of warmth in the room, for the touch of the dark, for the seeing eye to eye with the cry now crystallized as fox crouched in the unkempt grass outside the bathroom window, with its dull fire fur and its breath a January blade, for the bones of grass in the black earth, for the baby's wail through the night's walls, for the funeral pyre that might yet become a field bed, brightening, for the breaking of winter, for the minute when your eyes feel the waters rise and your breath is a blow, and it is the booze, a bit, but also all that rosy unfolding in the corners of these closed eyes that you hope will be there when the world returns, and you might not see, but you will try. Gonna take a second poem then. This one was written after I placed in this competition, but in the time between hearing from Janice and putting the final selection together, I received word that a friend and colleague of mine, Neil Jameson, activist and community organizer, had very sadly passed away. And I remember it hitting me quite a bit, and then thinking, really, the presence and the decency of somebody like Neil deserved some manner of tribute. And so this is a poem dedicated to Neil Jameson. Dear friend, you stood upright for one life in the peopling daylight and did it for everyone else. And in between, the homes you made happen, the living wages you won, the refugees whose welcomes you saw through, somehow you cracked me open and I didn't know it until you were gone. And so, to stay accountable to the sun on our backs, to the pavements our feet pray to, with every repetition, we keep going through another garden gate, into another church hall to push the pews back and find a way to mend the desecrated world and the people breathing through it. And you will go there with us. There will be tea and biscuits, or when the work is put down, a pint for those who need it. Thank you very much. Going through this a lot more briskly than I first imagined I would. So I'm already on my third poem. So I will leave you with this one. This is the poem that did end up making its way into the anthology. And thank you again to everybody for the opportunity to put it in front of an audience. And on this singular day, they ask, "Forgive how I have lived inadequate to the sweetness of tea, of someone else's tea, to their taste in ludicrous tableware. Forgive that I did not know the tastes of men and women until I was nearly 30. Forgive my indifference to those whole mornings where nothing erupted, where the doors opened and I walked through unsurprised, where the sun was hot, and if my heart skipped, it was only as new bird song slipped through it. Forgive my neglect of every trembling morning where my head was not in flames and my tear-stained eyes were so tender that the evening leaves outside my window were almost too much. Forgive my unknowing, inattentive health. Forgive my weak embrace. Make it tight as life." And that'll do from me, I think. Thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing from everybody else. Thank you once again to Mandy, to Janice, to Donald, and yeah, have a good rest of the evening, everybody.
Thank you, Tim. That was a lovely reading. Thank you. Now, unfortunately, Joan is not well today. She's just messaged us to say she can't be here. So I'm going to read one of her poems, one of the ones that she submitted. It will be in the pamphlet. It's called Strawberry One. The cold connects us to the frozen grave, as does the date, which duplicates the outing, suddenly risen out of memory. In Boston, Massachusetts, it's a cold, sunny, slushy February 1st, a month since we buried my mother. I'm paying another visit to my father. We've walked a mile and back along a trafficked road to pay the month's rent, the first time since he married. My father is happy chatting, but doesn't like the bother of being family bank manager. Besides, he's always been a soft touch, not just for us and hobo handouts, but a few weeks in, he's already given a week's salary to a young man, a loan, the future shows, not to be repaid, nor the novel the young man promised published. But now we're sitting in an ice cream parlor. My father likes vanilla, but orders strawberry, my mother's favorite. He finds it too sugary. To me, it looks sickly pink like candy floss. My vanilla, which he declares delicious. 10 years later, when I visit him in a care home, he seems to wake asleep and speak in sleep. Joan, he whispers, as if I'm asleep. We could have some ice cream if you could find a spoon. Years later, I'm wondering about memory, the way it tucks out of reach to surface suddenly. Today, after dinner, a friend served sherbet. Too pink, too sweet. And strawberry too. Memory goes on learning. Here we are again, breakfasting on large, sweet, fresh strawberries. My sister eats them one by one from a blue ceramic bowl on her marble-topped dining table with a view of a sunlit bay in the picture window. For years, I visited in June. I sat beside her with a matching bowl of crimson everlasting. But when the end approached, I came in winter. Outside the window on the balcony stood a waist-high trough heaped with straw. It was pale as her new crop of hair. Showing me the wig she'd relegated to a shelf, she said, "My hair feels like straw." She laughed about the straw she'd used, mini cuttings sold at Halloween for crafting mini witches and scarecrows. The straw was heaped over 10 new runners, planted with the logic of summer, the hope of summer, another summer for fruit. She was asleep before the sun lowered. I watched it sink and spread a fiery red across the rock we used to swim to, now winter white. In the dream, I turn to her and watch her lift a strawberry to her mouth. It's a lovely poem too. And
Now it's Ian.
on to Ian, who was one of our 3 individual poet readers, winners. So, Ian Royce Chamberlain, would you like to unmute?
That's always a good idea, isn't it? Hello, Janice. Hello,
Thank
Donald.
you. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you to Mandy and to Vol. Janice, would you like me to read the winning poem plus those in the anthology, or do you want some different ones?
Could you read one of the ones in the book?
Of course.
A couple of different ones.
Okay. All right. So you want the winning poem first?
Yes, please.
The joint winner. Fine. Okay. I'm very pleased with this. I've been writing quite a lot about not having a religion and envying those who do. St. Botolph's legacy. It was not some sacrilegious sin I committed, though it could so easily have been. That regimented Sunday rigmarole of walking on the water, resurrection, all the straight-faced points between. The Good Shepherd, so they said, was not just watching over me, but watching. Every thought, every deed monitored for goodness. God, the omnipresent God of St. Botolph's, needed me to do things right, pray for forgiveness when I got it wrong. Heaven would be mine eventually. But I was 10. What I did was whisper to my sister over loud. She giggled, and the organist, our mother, must have heard. Someone led me to the door, heavy, studded, huge iron ring for a handle, and it thumped and rattled shut behind me. In my blazer pocket, that shiny presentation book of common prayer grew heavier. Te Deum laudamus, nunc dimittis, Lord's Prayer, off by heart and filed away for those occasions when some believer seems to think it's needed. I almost envy them. The practiced way of faith, any faith, keeps them afloat. Not a lifeline or some rescuer on call, but a map, a guide, a teacher at the shoulder. The disciple won't be falling in the water, right? St. Botolph's lifebelt didn't fit, was never going to fit, but I almost miss it. Wish quite often there was something I could cling to. Even now the world has taught me how to swim. I'm not drowning, but this empty ocean isn't always easy. From the heart, that. Here's a relatively new poem that sort of almost goes with that. It's called Man to Man. There's someone in my bathroom shaving, face that is familiar but more worn than I remember, like a man who's seen bad times. And the shirt he's peeled off, Ralph Lauren, baggy linen, same as one I've had for years. He glances at me now and then, corner of his eye, a knowing disapproval comes across, sarcastic, like he's telling me I'm the one who needs to get a grip. I'd call him out, but the way he stands there, not a guy who'd listen. Maybe he's been dumped or crashed his car, buried his mum, whatever it shows. And he's distracted, not focused as he should be when he's shaving, patches that he's missed, silver stubble, little outcrops. But he seems to think he's finished. Doesn't even fingertip his jawline like a bloke who wants to please someone he's close to. Just a rinse, half-hearted. No aftershave, no moisturizer, leaves the razor where it lands. Maybe I should say something, ask if he's okay. I'm about to speak, but he shrugs and stares me down. Out on the landing, slouching off, he growls, "How it is, get over it." From your lovely anthology, Poetry is Not Dead, great title, love the cover. We've got friends at the moment who are in Larne in South Wales, and this is particularly relevant. It's the former place of Dylan Thomas, as I'm sure you know. This is postcard from where it all began. Strung between oaks on the boathouse steps, a line of pink and silky pants, striped socks, woolen top in olive green, Caitlin's colour. Then a sleeves akimbo shirt, wind pumped and flapping wild, his stamp. And my own feet on the sandstone ramp, intent on the tracks of a clattering god, an easy stretch to the tide of his ideas, the rise and fall and rise, and little changed except the mud thigh deep on the small town slip and the pilgrim flood. From the crushed cockle quay of Larne, fishing boats a lifetime gone, I stare above the oyster catcher flats and the stilted ghost of egret for the man, beyond the Gower or New York, but Christ's so close. I guess that, would you like another one, Janice? Up to you. I've got the other one from the book right here if you want it. Time?
I think you've done 3.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much. I love them. Well, as you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
It's
we
a
love
privilege.
particularly
Thank you.
the anthology ones, but they're lovely. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
And now we're going to go to
Claire.
the muted myself by mistake. To the next individual poem winner, and that's Claire Starling. And Claire, would you like to unmute, please, and read us some of your poems?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Janice and Donal, and thank you, Mandy, very much for your judging. I'm going to read the 2 poems that I have in the anthology and then a third one. I started writing poetry after my son was diagnosed with autism, and many of my poems are about him and capturing the moments of love and struggle that we were going through, and that journey to better understanding how people have different brains and how it can be good to do things differently. So I'm going to start with autistic weather. A storm bursts in. It rolls you on the sofa, spraying rain, your hair thrashed into tangles. You shudder under terrors of endless sleet. I coax you with cold chicken, like a half-drowned feral cat. Once on dry ground, you sniff at a boiled egg, accept a packet of Wotsits and a passion fruit. Warm and fed, you start singing something cloudless of your own creation. Your weather is devastating. All I can do is forecast, put up storm boards for you, sweep up your broken glass. And the other poem in the anthology is called One. I have sent my magpie boy into school. Will you perch on the desk, my bird? Will your thin claws skid? Will you peck at the books, scatter droppings? Can you lift your overloaded bag with that weak beak? You're a clever bird, a cheeky bird. You'll squawk through break, steal a shining moment to bring back to me. Trapped in class, will you flap about when they grab for you? Will you dive for the window, full stunned from the glass? By the end of the day, your feathers will be ragged. Sending you again tomorrow brings me sorrow. And the last poem I'm going to read is called Icarus on My Old Rollerblades. 20 years I've kept these clunky items of desire, weighty with grievance, fleeced 50 quid by a friend whose sister changed her mind, who zoomed past to success, already pals with the future shadow chancellor. The promised power of flight never smooth as I'd dreamed, ungainly, juddering, awkward to store, but now I drag them out for you to gamely try to get to hyperspeed. I creak the fastenings shut, launch you like Icarus in a jacket of old wax. The wheels break apart, rubber arcs sticky with entropy, bounce and skid past ducks and swans, plastic grates against tarmac. I can't do this, you say. I contemplate the enormous bins. There's so much I want for you, to make a break for the sun, to never lose out at anything. I let them fall with a clang, wrapped in a bag for life, and you say, it's okay, we can walk. Thank you.
Claire, that's lovely, really lovely. I hope you find a publisher for your pamphlet.
Yes, I have. Thank you. I found
Good.
a publisher. It's Frosted Fire, so it should be coming out. My pamphlet should be coming out later in the year.
That's wonderful.
Very happy.
Well done. And now we go to Julia. Julia Stottard, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for selecting my poems for the anthology. I'm going to read The Significance of Nowhere from the pamphlet first. The significance of nowhere. How could I leave her there? The third child, the one we didn't have, strapped in a buggy, kicking her feet and guzzling from a beaker of milk. I parked her there, all curls and contentment, outside the deserted cafe and walked away. Crammed in the open carriage of a narrow gauge, we chuff as far as the buffers and back, or whistle through a smog of steam, then gathering to hurry back for the third, across the rails, through bleary tunnels, back to the arches, where the third child is gone. No sign of the buggy. The cafe open and busy with people sat around tables. They haven't seen her. They don't know. And why did I leave her? I don't know either. The waitress says she can help me look. She has searched the sidings and checked the park. I'm frantic with panic and making all manner of vows, but none will find her. None will reverse this dereliction. I'm chasing along a runway, screaming. The air is freezing. The sky is yellow with failure. The walls begin to crumble, implode. The ground gives way, and I sink into a hopeless quest for what isn't there and was never there. I catch on at last and rise into a house where the day is still asleep, and the gale has flung the door wide open to search for a name that was never taken. And I'm going to find the other one in the book, which is further on, and I should have marked it. There's this. A case for accumulation. A case for accumulation. Leaving the house with a shoe bag looped on the bamboo cane, I was caught unlatching the garden gate. I packed a small blue cardboard case for our weeks in Devon, a holdall for Matlock Bath, a backpack for Amsterdam, and a 20-kilo suitcase for the year abroad. Expanding luggage, split at the seams, gave way to boxes for Oxford, chests for Wickham, and a lorry for Welland Garden City. Every place I have ever left, hitching a lift to the next. And I'm just going to read one more, called The Other Half. If anyone reads Orbis, they might have seen this one in the last issue. The Other Half. The mirror doubles our wealth, spreading it evenly out, as if to unfasten hardship and provide a spare of everything. This unutterable space is where patience reflects its soulmate on the far side of the room. We play jinx and first to blink without a winner, whilst we consider whether to reside in the half that holds the heat or the half where the clock runs backwards and pain repairs itself. Thank you.
Lovely, Julia. Thank you. Thank you very much. I did see your poem in Orbis. Yes. Well done. Now, shall we unmute and go clap, clap, clap for the last 5 readers, because they've done a lovely job.
Bravo.
Bravo, bravo.
Well done.
And we'll, I'm muting myself. I'll keep muting myself rather. Okay, we'll go on now and we'll hear from Judith. Judith Wozniak, please.
Thank you, Janice and Donal and Mandy, and congratulations to all the prize winners. Poems were wonderful. These two poems are in the anthology, I'm delighted to say. Running. After it happened, all I could do was to listen to her replay every detail, to try and make sense of it. The arum lilies, rain skittering over fogged windows, a heavy smell of spilled pollen, her saying, "Doctor, I can't do this." I still see her running along the towpath, cap pulled down, earphones in, staring ahead, trying to outrun grief, holding her son's ghost in her throat. She never stops to talk. And my next poem is Watched. I know he watches me from the shadows. My mother says we should be kind. He's lonely. He can see our house from his bedroom window. He watched our game today in the meadow. She wants us to ask him to tea on Sunday. I tell her he watches me from the shadows. She laughs, doesn't believe me. She knows I don't like him. I wish he would move away, stop watching our house from his bedroom window. Sometimes I see the flash of a camera. He followed me down our street one day. He says he will always watch from the shadows. But he promised my mother a while ago to watch out for me when I'm out to play. He can see our house from his bedroom window. One day he was waiting by our gate. I froze when he tried to touch me. He warned me not to say that he will always watch me from the shadows. He can see our house from his bedroom window. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. Quite creepy, that second one, isn't it? It's a form poem as well, I think. Very good. Now, we're going to continue with Simon Williams. Simon, where is your hat?
Right. Yes, I'm going to start with the poem out of the anthology, or one of the poems out of the anthology. The sequence that I submitted was all about a rather sort of normal, slightly boring man called Mr. Picker and his slightly more interesting wife. And this is a poem from fairly early on in the sequence, and it's called Cars. Mr. Picker drives a Nissan Micra, an early model, but in pristine condition. I hear you murmur you are not surprised, and I wish it could be otherwise, that Mr. P could have a Bugatti Veyron, that Mrs. Picker could let her hair flow back as they outrun police cars on the autobahns of Bremen. You'll have to be content to know that Mr. Picker has invested in a sat-nav with a sexy female voice, that he has discovered a new route to his cousin's house in Godalming, and when she hears which exit he should take at every roundabout, Mrs. Picker is a little jealous. The other poem is from another anthology. This is an anthology of poems and paintings from Dartmoor. Two groups have been working together for the last couple of years. I've got a triptych of 3 poems in it about a woman that I imagined living in a farm on the moor. And this is the middle of those 3 poems. So there's one with her as a girl, one with her as a woman, one with her as an old woman. And they're all a bit sort of poesque. That's the idea anyway. This one's called Overnight. I met her in the doorway as she hurried me inside. On such a Dartmoor night as this, I wasn't going to ride. Sitting by her glowing fire, sipping at her broth, the firelight drew me to her like a lantern draws a moth. As we sat, she told me of her life beside the mire, the snows and storms, the sun at dawn, the blossom on the briar. All night we slept in wooden beds, both boxed and curtained round. I listened for her breathing, but I never heard a sound. At morning, when I left, I asked her for her name. She said her mother called her Lulu, and I could do the same. She'd gone back in before I knew I'd left my hat inside. When I went in, the rooms were bare, the roof blown tempest wide.
Oh, another creepy one. Well done. That's lovely. We're going to go and see this exhibition. It sounds interesting.
Good.
Down in Cornwall then. And now, Laura Tice, please. Unmute, please.
Hi. So I'm going to read 2 from the anthology, and the first one is called Furnishings. Once again, the small god and I find ourselves at war. We disagree, of course, about many things, but most often and most violently about the purpose of rugs. For my sins, I believe they ought to be flat, uncreased surfaces splayed out parallel to the floor, whereas the small god is convinced they need to be bunched up, beveled, twisted, and pummeled into complicated 3-dimensional objets d'art. We can't help ourselves. We have to undo each other's efforts several times a day with increasing urgency. The small god forever bunching and punching and rearranging with teeth, paws, and huffs of annoyance. And me on my hands and knees, straightening and flattening with the air of a put-upon dowager's maid. It's a strange compulsion on both our parts, a frustrating lesson in perpetual futility, perhaps as close to purgatory as we can ever get this side of the veil. We pretend not to know this is just another shape that love takes, furnishing the small space between heaven and hell. So that was inspired by this dog. I don't know if you can see her there. She always bunches up my carpet. And the other one is called 3 in Translation. The memory knocks and waits for my welcome. It's wearing a 3-way grin and a battered hat. I hesitate before I dare to let it enter because old feelings aren't supposed to be reheated like leftover takeaway. I say, none of us are the same people we were back then. We each dream in different languages now. I wonder whether and how that has changed things. Recalling a conversation that last night in my empty apartment before she and I left you for 2 separate countries. My mind overdubs our words as a matter of course, translating between old and new tongues, as if it might render every regret a hazard of words that might still be said.
That's beautiful too. Loved your dog poem. Fantastic. I've never had a dog. I wonder why. I love my rugs. Now we're going to continue,
Gerald.
and it's Gerald. Gerald Killingworth, please.
This is my poem from the anthology. It's called Solstice Night, the Earth House. The Earth House is a very, very large Neolithic style building at the Ancient Technology Centre in Cranbourne in Dorset. It holds 200 or 300 people, and they have solstice celebrations there. And this is from the last solstice, the winter one. In comes we, crowding into their space, their time, the flint men. Their sense of oak, earth, and wood smoke suggesting liminalities. Heavy coated, some with garlands, we are their tribe tonight. We ring the fire, 3 tiers of us in a great round house. The circle is our totem. The passage of the year we celebrate, linked hands, our time and space a chain with theirs. We want to lose ourselves. In comes he, old Father Christmas, antlered, misruling, holly evergreen. He stirs us to be jolly, to nudge the year along. We shake, rattle, and stamp, sing as if spring depends on us. Did they have intervals? We drift outside, our breath misty, the night starless, damp. We learn again what darkness is, real darkness, thick, enclosing. We breathe against it, do not cross the line. For them, it hid the aurochs, bare, another tribe. We saunter in search of tea. The Viking house is long, has corners, sharpnesses, like their squint on life. The fire trough extends a boat of fire to warm long lines of us. We buy our cups of tea and tie a message on the log of Yule. In comes she, dancing the tale of earth, the dark months when seeds are sleeping, not too deeply, as our noise reminds them. We need that reawakening, the first brave shoot, our primavera. And the second poem is about one of my neighbours who died just before Christmas, surprisingly, because she was one of those people you think will live forever, but she didn't. It's called Anne. Can you hear me okay? I'm worried sometimes my microphone's a bit funny. Anne, our little unfledged bird, your floss of hair caught in a headscarf mothers wore. You tripped and skipped from home to town, a 70-wintered Red Riding Hood, in hand knits, colour clashing, basket on arm, 3 items, bargains probably. At night sometimes, uncurtained windows exposed you, nestled reading in a chair. What tales? High romance? Or tiresome neighbours done in? You told me once there was the great fire's handprint on your stair, a smudge of black that workmen, blundering, efficient, rolled out, and took a moment's history, as sudden illness has taken you from us. A half-lowered blind, I notice, sways in the window as I pass. The china cart horse, unstroked, pines. But, come the summer, the cascade of passion flowers that overflows your garden wall will fruit and offer sweetness to our memories.
Thank you, Gerald. Lovely poems as usual. We've done a book for Gerald, so I know Gerald's poems. They're lovely. Thank you.
Sarah.
Sarah McLeod, please. Where are you? Yes?
Here I am.
There you are. Lovely. Off you go.
Right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Right. I have trouble with microphone too. The first one is one that's in the anthology, and it's all three poems were written from my theme of abuse, unrequited love, and revenge. And this one is revenge. Size matters. There he is. I know it's him. I take him away on a long velvet leash with a collar, the way you would lead a pet tiger if you were rich and photogenic and wearing a leopard skin coat. His blood ruins my dress, yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him, Macbeth, Act 5, Scene 1, as it surges down the drain. His skeleton turns out to be a creature of little substance. I jangle wind chime clavicles, click auditory ossicle castanets, dance the flamenco as he reduces to the hiss and dart of a forked tongue, a fistful of fading fury, until all that's left is something small enough to stamp on. The second one is from one it's not in the anthology, and it's from a series I'm working on about endangered species and extinction. And like a lot of people, I'm very fond of bees and are worried about the bees. This one starts with a quotation. Next, I'll speak about the celestial gift of honey from the air by Virgil. The bees are packing up their instruments and leaving the stage. The beekeeper watches as they nose lavender, shimmy to notes of bass oboe, giddy sunflowers, return at dusk with murmurs of violins. The bees swarm in velvet racing colours, dine out on a dust storm banquet of pollen, create Virgil's celestial gift under shrouds of sky. The tractor unzips the field, drones on, dull-witted by fertilizer and fumes. Overhead, the crop sprayer bird lays siege. Insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, disease. The hives shut up shop. Vacant possession begins. No concerts planned for the bees, their oboes, their violins. And thank you, Janice and Donna.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was lovely. I think we went to a thing about bees, didn't we, at the weekend? Very good. So now we don't have Mary, and we don't have, at the moment, we don't have Rod Whitworth, because Rod is having trouble with his Wi-Fi, but he may join us later. But Mary is on the Eurostar, and she was very bravely thinking she would join us from there, but she's decided it won't work. So is it Judith who's going to read her poems? Is it Judith? Somebody offered to read.
It is me. It is
Yes,
Judith.
thank you, Judith.
It's going to be my first time of trying to read them off the phone. So
Oh, right. It's Mary Mulholland's.
Mary Mulholland. Yeah, Mary Mulholland. All or nothing girl. Bodies were frowned on in my family. They were fed, washed, hidden away. When my body started changing, my sisters called me fat. I grew to dislike the bathroom mirror. I was enfolded in too much skin. too padded out at a subcutaneous level. Then I fell in love with my shadow, so long and model slim. She was able to disappear without a sound. I gave up eating. My sisters complained I was now too thin and should go for moderation in all things. Half banana, half biscuit, half glass of wine. Being older, they knew better. I could become just like them. The next poem is called Diptych. We're in the kitchen. The air smells of earth and rain. There are maggots in the bananas. We finish the rum. I make cassava fritters we eat with our fingers. You leave me to clear up. I stand by the window gazing at the freedom of lightning strobing your paradise. Coconut palms bend like they're masters of yoga. There's a new river whose bed is a road. The storm is drowning the sound of tree frogs, turning the tin roof into a drum, thunder the big bass. The wind grows wilder until it's screaming. I don't understand what it's saying. You're lying in bed grinning at likes on Instagram. The next thunder is the whole window flying in, hits the floor, showers you and everything in splinters of glass. You look at me, desperate, as if I am your mother. I'm tempted to leave you. The airport's not far, but instead start vacuuming the floor, bed, and you. The machine sucks and tugs at your skin like it's surplus. It whines and pulls at your flesh. It wants more. I turn the power to max and the whining stops. Then at the next pin of somebody's like, it suctions you right up its tube. Thank you.
What a fantastic ending. Thank you. Thank you for reading those for Mary. Thank you. Now, Rod has managed to come in, so we're going to have Rod Whitworth next. Are you okay, Rod? Unmute?
Yes, I am. Yeah, this is great, but I've been bedeviled by the evil Wi-Fi, which keeps dropping in and dropping out and forgetting who I am and all the other important things in life. So the parts I've managed to see so far have been great. So I'm going to start with this poem, which has just been published in the Cannon's Mouth recently. And it started with this notion that every 7 or 8 years or so, we replace our skin. And the cycle is repeated and repeated until, of course, we come to the end of it all. And it's called sloughing. And I'm trying to get more of my face in rather than just the bottom of my head, because I've now moved to a very small device. That's better. Sloughing. The second time he sloughed, he was more aware of it. Said goodbye to the winter shorts, unbrill creamed hair and the treble voice. By the fourth sloughing, he'd become blasé, carried it off with a shrug, kept the same collar and tie, and soldiered on. After that time, it was back to swapping each skin for a bigger one, with a built-in expander that didn't rely on elasticity. The 9th sloughing brought home to him a steady decline in quality that each replacement brought, flaky, easily split. The 10th time he realised he might not get another one. And my poem out of the anthology is Manchester, as you might imagine, really does proud on the Chinese New Year, and it's a big festival because a lot of people of Chinese heritage in the city, and I was at that, and I think the particular year was the year of the rat. I can't remember now, but I was thinking I could write a cycle on each of the animals in the zodiac, but I ended up settling for writing one about an animal that's not in the zodiac. So that's how I came by writing The Year of the Parrot. The Year of the Parrot. This is a year of eating parrots. Feathers, beaks, claws, and words. Spit out the parrot's feathers. Wrap them in sounds you want to hear, the rhythms of their flight. Spit out the parrot's claws. Clench them on the rock and scrabble to the place where you can see. Spit out the parrot's beak. Eat everything the earth throws at you, seed, stem, and leaf. Spit out the parrot's words. Form them on paper. It's only paper, to clang and chime. This is the year of eating parrots. Thank you. And what a magnificent publication.
That was really great, Rod. I love the slough one. Oh, that was so good, wasn't it? Very good. And so I'm glad you made it. And next we're going to hear from Nick Rooney. Are you there, Nick?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So I'm going to read my poem from the anthology first, which is a little bit grim, actually. So, no other God. All deities reside in the human breast. William Blake. They call me entropy and console themselves with reason. They call me sleep and soothe their souls with lies. I am the unraveling, a tapestry reduced once more to thread. I am the hand that turns the page, closes the book, and burns the library. I extinguish universes as neuron constellations dim and fade to nothing. Do not forget me. Do not forget that there is no God but death. Yes, a little bit of a downer one. This next one is one I wrote quite recently, but it's about a place I visited in Jersey last year, which is a Neolithic mound, actually, with a church on top. At Lahogue BA, Jersey. Thick. The air is thick inside the mound. The weight of the church above us dissipates within this stone dome straight out of the age of dragons. Bright sunlight spills in from the passageway, an inverse lighthouse, a lighthouse where all the bulbs have died. Thick. The air is thick, and I reach into it, groping for an answer, for the why of it. Fingers find nothing. I see only shadows splayed across the stones. I too am a shadow on the stones, deconstructed into 2 dimensions. Plato in reverse. Perhaps the stones are the why, a barrier to demarcate eternity, a spiritual collider, a statement that this is sacred, this is not. I can almost see them, desperate little islands of consciousness, pinpricks in a vast, unfeeling plain, placing stone on laborious stone and thinking this will sustain us, contain us, explain us. Outside, the light slips behind a cloud and the shadows die once more. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Janice, Donald, and Mandy.
Thank you, Nick. That was great. I don't find your poem about death a downer. You're very young to realise it. That's the only thing. That was brilliant. Thank you for both of the poems. And we'll have Diane next, and then we'll stop for a little clap. And if you want a break, we'll have a break, but I'm happy to go on. But Diane, Melanie, please. Oh, she was here earlier. Diane?
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
No.
Diane Lewis. Ask to unmute. There you unmute yourself, Diane. There.
Got me?
Yep, got you.
Okay. So the first one is from the book, Tulip. Happyful and riotous, a jug of bursting tulips, bright with emphatic mini fists that one day bop you playfully in the face, then comically open. Ta-da! All splayed and waverly, like clown hands, flouncing about on drumstick arms. Hello, friend, they say. Did I make you smile? The second poem is part of a collection that I'm building around the theme of neurodiversity. Mine, actually. I can see that a lot of my poetry over the years clearly illustrates autistic traits that I just didn't know I had at the time. But this poem was written recently as part of a sequence, and it looks back at a significant moment when I was 9 in the light of what I now know about myself. It's called Shards. A piece of actual magic winks from a shelf beside scary shelf rob and assorted souvenirs in the larger of Granny and Grandad's spare bedrooms, where my sister and I top and tail for a week every summer. Dad in the box room, Mum nearby at Nana's with our younger brother. Scary frog I must avoid looking at if I don't want nightmares. But I am helplessly enchanted by the miniature scene encased in a bubble of glass. Tip it carefully in my nightly ritual of snowmaking. In the front garden at home, cherry blossom tree does its best each spring to recreate the effect. Me inside its swirling drifts of tiny petals, making homes for fairies in the rockery. Darling girl, it wasn't your fault you didn't know how to play. Lining up dolls on the back lawn in an order that calmed you. Black shoes, no shoes, buckle shoes, shiny shoes, boot shoes. Compelled to repeat pleasing patterns indoors on sheets of graph paper for silent hours on end, capping your felt pens and repackaging them in shop bought order. But age 9, a sudden brick of shocking news leaves you reeling. Your bubble world of glittery inversions and quiet sitting forever changed, like some bigger hand picked it up and instead of treasuring, smashed it. That's it.
Excellent, Diane. Thank you. Do you know, I loved that Waverley, the tulip. And the way you set it out actually was very, very effective. It was in the shape of a tulip. You made me worry with the second poem. I'm afraid I've got that tendency to line things up in shop or yeah. However, there you are. We soldier on.
Yeah.
And now we're going to stop and give everybody a bit of a clap. Yes. Unmute, please. And thank the Lord. Thank you. Now we'll go on to Philip Lauder. Good, I'm glad you got here.
Yeah, I made it.
Sure, were you? Good.
Yeah.
Nice to hear from you.
Well, it's lovely to be here, and thank you for seeing my work in print. It really is a thrill to see that in a proper book. It's a great feeling. Thank you. So one from the anthology, which is called Ovaltine with My Father. A small thing, gentle coda to the day, when Mum had gone on up to have her bath. Telly off and carefully unplugged. Lights out, doors locked, dog settled down. My job to find the saucepan, pour the milk, set it on the stove, while my father watched. He, a stranger to the kitchen's mysteries, whose only dish was slightly chewy scrambled egg. Ovaltine added, stirred and blended, decanted into the same green mugs each night, and we would sip and chat, awkwardness at bay. I don't recall our topics, nothing monumental, that's for sure, just bits of today and tomorrow. Did it happen often? I'm not sure. And yet it stays, uncobwebbed in my mind. This shy and complex man, so of his time, so often absent, chasing role and meaning, ex-commando who would cry at weddings, who never spoke of childhood or of war, could, for those few minutes in a Yorkshire kitchen, I want so much to believe, be dad and nothing more. And the other one I chose tonight, if only because it actually fits inside the 2 minutes, is called The Waiting Man. I'm waiting, he said, and his watery eyes looked past me where I couldn't see. And his ragged shirt was a cloak of gold, his unshaven head the cemetery bust, and his landscape the birth of a death. I'm waiting, he said, a hand held up refusing coffee or tea, and the traffic's roar was his threnody, the shivering rain his balm, and the dead weight of the minute hand, his executioner's sword.
Oh, Philip, we weren't so mean as to only give you 2 minutes.
I thought that's what we were working to.
2 poems. Do you want to read another one?
No, absolutely, I'm fine. That's
Anyway,
good.
they were great. Thank you very much. And thank you for making it. I know you were out today.
It was a challenging day, but it's good to be here. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. So Tina Cole, please, would you like to read next?
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Congratulations, everybody who's sitting here tonight. Well done. How lovely to be sharing your poetry. I'm going to read one from that was in the book, and another one that fits with that theme because it's a kind of animal theme. I'm a great lover of Pascal Petit. So the first poem I'm reading is Self-Portrait as a Furtive Bird after Pascal Petit. Tonight, breath of small animals brushes my neck. The ghosts of tree people are watching with thoughts restless as motherless birds. The forest floor resounds with rustle and yelp. It is alive with hunters and their half-buried dead. A pair of monkeys meet my gaze. We consider each other with no urgency for common language. To them, I am a darting Thumbelina, 50, not enough meat on bone. My house bristles through thin straws. Even the leaves fear the rain's persistent knives. So I tuck brave secrets under my wing. Flocks of ruby parrots lift to the sky as if the sun was a magnet. Hyacinth macaws lessen themselves into night. They are worlds away from the slyness of nets and snares and the trap of tiny cages. And the other poem I'm going to read is also in Orbis quite recently. So another animal poem. This is called What I Told the Wren. I talked to the wren broke her thistle-down head. Our cat has had her tail, the carpet a flurry of pewter snow. Outside, a weight of sky is held by the bare arms of trees, darkness heavy at the kitchen window. Her 4 claws wrap my finger. She is 1 grain, a handful of lentils. I tell her that hummingbirds' wings eat 12 times a second, that she would be a heavyweight in their featherweight world. She fixes me, 1 perfect blink. I bill and coo in haphazard French. Mon petit, ne pas peur, mon petit. Trembles like a silver brown bell. I tell her words that have formed in me over years like coal. I tell her I have safety pins. I have soft songs and lullabies and masks dazzling as a peacock's eye. I tell her lilac can burst into song after rain. That fog is a kind of forgiveness when the need for precision is gone. I stroke a body where bone sense and brain clock are not lost. I tell her my secret. I would sacrifice words for wings, but must fold myself back into this bulky prison of skin. In truth, I am without compass. I am fearful of gravity. I tell her she is a bright gift, like finding sixpence, the pick and mix in Woolworths. Her fluttering is eggshell light and speckled with stars. Too soon she will fly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Lovely. Thank you. And next we have our only European of the whole book, and that's Patrick. Patrick Holloway, please. Would you like to read for us?
Of course. Thanks to Janice and everyone involved in the anthology. It's really beautiful and it's been lovely reading it and listening to everyone read their poems tonight. I'll read the poem that's in the anthology and it's called Subtext. When I say I'm just tired, what I really mean is that the world is spinning in angles mathematicians are yet to name. When I say I just hate my job, what I mean is I'm a plain shoe in a plain wardrobe in a plain house on a plain street. When I can say nothing, when words are shurikens spiraling inside of me, what I mean is I wonder if this is living at all. When I unpeel myself from you, sticky with the smells of our insides and say, fuck me, that was lovely. What I mean is you have made art out of me. When I exhale, what I'm really doing is singing notes as thin as shadows. In the morning, when I say I'll be back at 5-ish, what I mean is that there are wishes I cannot give words to, lives I know I'll never live. Thank you. And the next poem I'm going to read was first published in Southward, and I wrote it about the birth of my first daughter. It is called There is Nothing More Beautiful That Language Can Offer. Her breath a herald, my hands slippery with sweat in hers as she squeezes everything inside out. Hot scream, still wet from her living, you are carefully handed over with gummy emerald eyes. Little bird, chapped red folds of skin, your tongue flicking inside your newborn mouth. Endless gums gather endless screams. I hold you to my chest. I no longer sleep, but nap in between fleeting moments of silence. I hide your eyes from the light as I change you. Your twig legs kick, the dummy falls from your mouth, and you overwhelm the world with a yowl. My phone rings and her voice is thick. It comes from a place I have not been yet. She rolled off the bed. Come home, quick. You shape your lips around English and Portuguese, thudding the fat, thick tongue against palate to create new sound. On my lap, you soothe my nose and say, I love you too much. And I say, my girl, and you say, my daddy, and I think there is nothing more beautiful that language can offer. A terror thunders inside of me when twilight is at its darkest. I see you falling downstairs, a crack I feel in my bones as your head swirls sanguine, clotting your thin blonde hair crimson. That moment I turn in the supermarket and you are lost and everyone obscures into ghostly shapes with no eyes. How can love do this? And how can I live forever with this inside of me? It is too hot and you're falling into sleep in my arms, sticky from the heaviness in the air. I see it, the exact moment you fall into the seemingly ceaselessness of dreaming. If I had only a moment to anchor me to this terrain, it would be this. Your weight in my arms, the mass of you that holds all of my love, sticky and tangled, the flesh of what it is to live. Thank you very much.
Oh, what a beautiful poem about your daughter. Thank you. It was lovely. You live, actually, Donald's got relatives in your town.
In
Yes.
Cork?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Carrigaline.
I'm living in Carrigaline.
Yes, yes.
I noticed.
Mary Ford.
I don't know her now, but I'll seek her out.
Quite a small place. Anyway, thank you very much for the lovely poems. And we're going to go now to Ted Gouda. Ted, would you like to read for us?
Thank you. I shall read the two poems from the anthology. The first is Stepping Stone. The pebble in my shoe made me limp. For years, I put up with the pain until one day I stopped walking altogether, kicked off the shoe in despair. The stone came loose. I held it in my palm, worn, where years had worn it smooth. I tried to throw my stone with my weak arm. I could smash through windows or ceilings, make a terrific mess. But I didn't like clearing up after, plus the shards were a danger. So I painted my stone bright colours, watched it on the mantelpiece. Still, there was little comfort. I put my stone in my pocket, where it weighed me down. I thought of Virginia and Ophelia and the certainty of madness. The longer I carried my stone, the closer it moved to my heart. I placed my stone on the ground. I thought it would trip me. Instead, I found I could step taller. It was a fine view above the crowd. I smiled, nodded at other heads standing proud on their stepping stones. Now I build my house from stone, so the wolf can't blow it down. And the second poem is A Child Tiptoes into a Restaurant Kitchen. Vats of lasagna bubble over in ovens fit for Gretel's witch. Shepherds are captured in pies, screaming prisoners of casserole dishes. Scampi sizzles untouchable in lethal, Midas-cursed deep fat fryers. Tins of stock powder stand stacked the girth and height of Rapunzel's tower. Mountains of chips form of potatoes pulled from Brother Lustig's stack. Near a hanging carcass, thick cheese mattresses are piled for the princess and pea. Jack's giant resides here, but there is no beanstalk of escape. Only the apple is a normal size, but who would dare to bite?
There's a wonderful image of a little girl going into the big restaurant kitchen. Lovely. And, oh goodness, we're doing very well. Jim Conwell, would you like to read for us?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
First of all, thank you to everybody who's read so far. And thank you to the two of you for allowing me to be in this gathering. So the first one I'm going to read is from the anthology. It's called Cowboy Boots. I had a pair of cowboy boots once. There's a picture of me wearing them, sitting on a stool by the bar at Joe Connolly's wedding. Rita, his bride, is also there in a dress that's too small for her. My boots appear to have two tongues like they were eager dogs. That's the stick-on soles I managed to glue on before the stitching was worn through, for which I had not got it together to re-glue when they started coming loose. I probably did get around to it eventually, just not in time for the wedding. One of the things I used to like about those boots was that I made a noise like a horse when I was coming down the corridor. You could hear me coming like I was somebody. They weren't real cowboy boots with all the stitching on the leather and the very pointed toes. They were kind of, though. Thank you. This second poem was published in 2020 in Bindweed. It's called Conclusion. Bernie had her own world, I guess, not one that I was ever really part of. She stayed a local in Cricklewood. Nothing self-conscious about it, she just belonged there. She drank in Barrett's, for Christ's sake. She worked in Kilburn. She'd been to Ireland a few times, but beyond that, they don't do baked beans in Morocco. There's a picture of the two of us at a party, and we've both had enough to be looking into the middle distance. It looks like we feel affection for one another, or she for me, if I'm honest. When I went over to see my uncle, he was lying in a coffin in his own living room, while we lined up for the visitors who came, each for their own goodbyes. I remember how presentable he was, and I thought of the skill behind that. And I wondered about the fucking amateurs that had prepared my mother and my father and my sister Bernie. I'd just been punched hard in the stomach. I was holding myself quiet, hoping to recover. But you don't actually. That's what they don't tell you, the guardians of these things. They say there is a process, goals, stages to reach in a journey that will take you to the other safe side of this dangerous hole that has opened up in your existence. But supposing it doesn't happen that way, where is the club for people who don't manage? The one that will allow you to make a mess of it. My sister died. She's still dead. I live with her absence. I can't wrap that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. That's a very moving poem. Thank you. And Mark Cassidy. Where are you, Mark?
Hi, Janice, and hi, everyone. Thank you very much. It's really grand to be in the anthology, along rubbing shoulders with some really fine writing, the kind of little triumph that keeps us all going. Two poems then, and the first one, just self-explanatory, is called To My Daughter, about being grown up. No, I have no secrets to pass on. Cannot explain how self-doubt picks out a mind to live in. With patterns of our shared sky, I see your shadow come and go, but cannot open the heavy door into brilliant daylight. People keep pushing through, all that knocking never for you, or so it seems. For I don't hear the language of your longing, nor question your regrets, but picture those ghosts who left you standing, their bare faces behind unanswered texts. In the making of your own bed, it isn't good enough for me to claim all men are not the same. And the second poem actually hasn't got an explanation because I'm not really sure I understand it myself. Just to say, it came from a prompt, which was to start a poem with on the day before the world ended. So if that gives you any kind of context, and this is what I came out with, and it was so. In the dim beginning, we were simple, grass in the field, baking to the colour of plain biscuit, swayed only by a wingless wind. Water and light were undivided, no firmament there to guide us other than knots in a rosary. We pressed those beads tightly, mumbling the calculus of our virtue. Parents who knew no worse, or if they did, never told us, seldom counted just how many raindrops made a shower. Hereafter was a given thing, unglimpsed, somewhere in mist across marshes or the smoke from a thurible. You and I see clearly now, swallows perched, still on the broken fence we share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting to my mic thing. Yes, that was lovely. Thank you very much. And it's very nice to hear a poem that doesn't say how terrible men are. Well done. And we don't have Alice Bridgewater. I've just realised she's missing. So we'll go straight on to Richard. Richard Carpenter, please. Unmuted?
Now I'm unmuted.
You are
and
now, yes.
I have to find my page.
Carry on.
I have 2 in the anthology, for which I thank you very much, and thank for all the lovely poems that I've heard this evening. I had another poem which was long listed, which has caused me some interest in the last few days, which Patrick and Donald might both recognise as being part of Irish folklore. And that's the description, Gaelic word for fuchsia flower, a day or a day. And it's a sign of love and hope. Now, these 2 poems, and Day or a Day, come from the collection I sent, which was title for which was The Love of Liquor. And obviously the subject was someone who had almost killed himself with alcohol. And I have to add, after reading, before I read these, that actually there is love and hope, because this friend of ours has recovered. And these poems are several years old, so the experience is a while ago. When you face the lesser of 2 evils, when you discover half a dozen empty vodka bottles hidden behind the sofa, when you check out all the hiding places in your house and turn your partner round as you hear his key turn in the lock, when you pass him all the heavy bags to fill the car boot, then you drive him to the recycling centre and have him watch as you hurl each offending article so it shatters in the depths of the bottle bank. When you drive him to the local 8 till late and make him beg the manager not to sell him liquor, or you will leave him to his squalor. When 1 week later you find a half-full bottle in the cistern, when you check your memory to convince yourself this was empty last week, then you realize you must choose the lesser of 2 evils, where you leave a shaky note that you must be true to your ultimatum and walk away with each step pulled back by love. The acid tongue The acid tongue welcomes us to the bedside. There's no regard of time taken to drive 30 miles to visit, the need to stop for petrol or buy a wrap for lunch, to sort out washing, drop her cases at our house, pick up medicines, make sense of texts about her progress and other calls on our love. There's no thought of what care we have to take when she tells us of her refusal of a tube into her stomach. She has no wish to be treated as a suffragette, to be spoken to by another Dr. Doom. This one wears a frock, who lays it on the line with northern directness that this binge has sent her tests up shit creek, and there'll be no early discharge to rehab. Yes, she does need 8 steroid tablets daily to reduce the inflammation in her liver and allow the bile to wash away. There is little else to offer. Certainly not to use the vodka flagon as a liver hammer. Thank you.
My goodness, they're powerful, particularly when you read them, because you had a career as a GP, didn't you? So you know
Indeed, yes.
what
Indeed.
you're talking about.
Indeed.
Yes. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And now we've got 2 more poets. Thank you very much. Those who have waited, Chloe and Roger, until somebody's got to be last, and I always hate it. So Chloe Balcom, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for this lovely evening, and great to hear everyone's work. The boy who almost made me quit. He had this way of fixing me, of sneering every time I spoke. Smouldering with fiery pride, he lauded it about the school, would tease and taunt, humiliate. I used to pray he'd move away, go off sick or get expelled. But sadly, he was hale and hearty, preferred to challenge me in class, question everything I said, or mimic me straight to my face, looking back to see who'd laughed. Oh, but he was just a boy, though his behaviour ground me down. For both our sakes, I had to try. For 2 long years we battled on, and sometimes I would lose my rag, see his face light up with glee. Then one day he pushed too far. I grabbed him by his jumper sleeve. As he fled, the nylon stretched, became a crackling conduit that leapt with sparks of eager static, stunned him into awed respect. Thank you. That's my poem from the anthology. And my second one is another school poem, Leroy and Tyler. Leroy and Tyler were those boys on the edge of bad, all brag, blather, and minor misdemeanors, letting off stink bombs, last into lessons, where they'd test their cheek out on us younger teachers. As they moved up school and dodged my orbit, there were rumours of them peddling weed, filching lead flashings for a dodgy older cousin. Sweet then, after all this time, to meet Leroy in nearby woods, not banged up, but grown up. She were my Thatcher, he explained to his pal. He didn't mention Tyler. I was longing to ask, but in that unexpected moment, his name escaped me. I only saw his freckled face, his smile half cock, off guard, almost friendly. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. We did love your poems. We've both been teachers, even supply teachers, so you can imagine we did sympathise. And we thought you had a lot of love for them, really, too. We love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, and certainly not least, is
Roger.
Roger Bloor. Would you like to read for us, please?
I am happy to do that. And thanks, Janice and Donald and Mandy Stewart, splendidly curated anthology. It's a pleasure reading it and listening to it tonight. So I'll read the 2 poems from the anthology. The weather for today. I watch you walk along the narrow path and wonder if you wore that skirt to match the colour of the day, or if the day has taken on the colour of my mood. This afternoon of scarlet silk flounces yellow polka dots of sun across the park, with little care for how the coming week may fare or whether it will come at all. This is a day for passionate affairs, for hotel rooms with bed-strewn lingerie, discarded morals littering the floor, and all the flesh two lovers could desire. This is an ice cream day of sun and sand, of lying on the beach with nothing on, then skinny dipping in a freezing sea, and never having felt this much alive. This is a day that needs to take a risk, a day that's tired of its grounded life and wants to move much closer to the edge and take an eyes-closed step into the air. This is the day I call to you across the park and say how much I love today with all its scarlet silk and yellow polka dots. This is the day we meet and fall in love. And the next one is the days to come, which has got an epigraph to Proverbs 31:25 in a fairly ironic sort of way, if you know Proverbs 31:25, which is about a woman clothed with strength and dignity, laughing at the days to come. Our mother lay beach rock backed, her midlife wreckage washed up beyond the line of wrack and plastic that littered her shoreline, the four of us lapping at her edge. She said her step had always been uncertain in its execution, ever since hesitation curled around her legs and held them tethered in its grip. She said her confidence was second-hand, found in a jigsaw box with one piece missing. She said there would have been sisters somewhere beneath the hormone waves of her mother's menopause. There would have been cake and chats over cups of tea and headscarves worn to weddings. These were her dreams. But then she saw a nightjar drop to nest and soon felt ground and stone and sand, another mother camouflaged, unnoticed on her eggs. She said that year by year, feature by feature, she saw herself slowly stripped away, like a votive candle held too close to other people's prayers. Thank you.
Oh, yes, that's beautiful. Yes, the image of your mother washed up. Oh, I can't remember the phrase, but it was lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Now that's the end of the poets' readings. And all of you, thank you so much for what you've given us tonight. We've realized what we've published now. We actually know how good this anthology is.
Yeah.